Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Tuesday, July 18th, 2017 edition of VR News. As you can tell, still in a hotel here. There's a reason for it, a reason of daring and stupidity. Mostly stupidity, but we'll get to that when I'm back. For now, just wanted to thank you guys. Some great comments, just hilarious, especially on the status update video. And you guys just hammering on that like button has had an amazing impact on the placement of these videos. And it's reflected in the views and the subscriptions. So thank you guys. Much appreciated. But enough of that. Let's jump into some news stories. Now, I cherry-picked these. Some that irked me. Some I thought were really interesting. The rest when I get back. So let's start with this first story, guys. Microsoft announcing to GameSpot that they are going to be working with first-party devs to create virtual reality games for their Windows VR headsets. And I almost added, and why I almost don't care, but I didn't. But let's get into that. So where to start? All right, let's start with Microsoft General Manager Dave McCarthy and this quote on exactly that. I would say developers are still finding their way to define the killer experience there, which is great at this point in its evolution overall. We believe in it enough that we have several of our first-party studios actually working on content for our Windows 10 devices. We'll have more to talk about later this year on that. Okay, with that quote out of the way, guys, here's the source of my bitterness. Back in 2004, on the Xbox One, I mean the original Xbox, there was a sequel released to a best-selling Xbox game, Halo. The game Halo 2. That whole situation would go on to become one of the most shameless and self-harming exclusivities ever seen in gaming. And I've seen a lot of gaming, guys, 3+ decades of it. Here's the maddening part. Halo 2 was within the capabilities of medium and high-end 2004, 2005 gaming rigs running Windows XP. No problem. Yet, Microsoft, having Vista on the way, originally for late 2005, decides to dangle Vista as superior and more worthy of Halo 2. And we all know what happened. Vista had some issues, causing IBS in some of us and some other issues. When that launch didn't happen on time, they looked for something to deflect, and the answer was Windows for gaming, which, in my opinion, one of the most confusing and misguided abominations thrown at PC gamers ever. When it did finally release, we're talking May of 2007. You can imagine the excitement was far from what it had been had the game released, 3 years earlier. What made all of this even more maddening is that Windows Gaming was their right arm. It posed no threat to Xbox. They could have milked 2 golden cows. Instead, they wanted to get extra greedy with just one. Now, guys, I could look like a complete idiot, and Microsoft keeps their word, and I like a lot of stuff about Microsoft. This is just my opinion, specifically related to Vista, Windows Gaming, and that era. And our second story, guys, this game looking a lot like Metal Gear Rising. It's called Reborn, A Samurai Awakening from Winking Entertainment. Let's take a look. This new title was announced today by developer Geronimo Interactive. In it, you're cast as Yukimura Sanada, a sci-fi samurai. The year's 2480, and surprise, surprise, you're doing battle with alien machines. But what I love is they've really borrowed from the raw data script, and really you could insert a lot of games here, but I'm using a VR reference. You've got a pair of pistols. You've also got lightsaber, like laser swords that you can use, and psychic powers. Again, all things that you have in raw data as well. You can also wield a mix of weapons in your two hands, and all of that done via the PlayStation Move controllers. Enemies get too close, and you are able to literally slash them into bloody pieces. Attacks also are going to require you to dodge and block in specific ways. Sounds a little bit like Dark Souls. As you learn the fights, you have to figure out the defensive moves as well in that. Now, my 2 cents, guys, I really like the pacing in the trailer, and this is a game I am definitely looking forward to. It's going to launch later this year. Now, this next story, guys, and I've said it before, I find war interesting. And let me kind of rephrase that. I like reading about wars that happened. Interesting. War is a terrible thing to go through. It's a horrible thing humans do to other humans. I've had family on both sides of one of the bloodiest conflicts humans ever waged on this planet. I understand it's a horrible thing, but that's why I still find it interesting. There's lots of lessons in history to be learned, and just interesting from, political points of view, historical points of view. There's a lot to be had reading about war history. One of the things I always had hoped to do, and unfortunately, my visits to England, I was never able to go to the Tank Museum, which used to be called the Bovington Tank Museum. It's in Dorset, and that's what this story is about. So this, guys, is a Sturmtiger in action. This is from a YouTube video, and it's rare footage, and in the video they play it at regular speed and then they slow it down, and what you see being hurled out of this beast of a machine is a 345 kilogram mortar rocket projectile. Now, some people called it a tank, but it really wasn't a tank. It was a mobile artillery piece, and it was designed with one purpose in mind: to provide infantry support in close quarter urban conflicts. So city, street to street type fighting, that's what this is designed, or was designed for. Now, that tank museum in Dorset, they tried to secure, there's basically 3 existing Sturmtigers. They were unable to do so, so they did the next best thing. They partnered with VR AR app developer Gravity Jack to bring the tank to their museum via AR and VR. Now, in AR, you're able to see it beside other tanks. You can get an idea of the scope and scale of this thing. And in VR, you are able to see its majesty in action via fictional combat narratives. And guys, this is exactly why I get so damn excited about virtual reality. Now, still one of my bucket list items to go to the Tank Museum in England, and I have no doubt I will one day do that. But for people who also want to go, who maybe can't for a myriad of reasons, this is, via VR, a second best option. And that is freaking awesome. And our last story, guys. There are a lot of concerts I've gone to. Literally a metric crap ton of concerts. I've seen most of my favorite musicians, bands over the last few decades. It's something I enjoy doing, going to see a band live or a solo artist live. There were 3 bands that I was never able to see who, for different reasons, weren't together, and I thought I'd never be able to see them. One of them I was able to see, and that was Black Sabbath. And the reason I like Black Sabbath so much is because of their part in history. And Deep Purple, and I understand there's other bands, and Judas Priest, etc. But the sound they created, just watch 1970s live in Paris performance. The Parisians have no freaking clue what they're in for and what they're hearing. But it was a new sound, a sound nobody had heard before. So I got to see them later. The other group, Led Zeppelin. Sadly, with Bonham's death and that concert that they did do in 2007, only a few exclusive people got to see that. Sadly, never going to happen. For different reasons, just from a historical point of view, the Beatles. And that's kind of what this next VR story is about. So Melody VR, we've talked about these guys on the channel before, still in beta as they were when I last announced them. These are the guys that allow you to view live music concerts or events from the vantage point of either being on stage or someone in the crowd. Last year, we talked about them partnering with Warner Music. Earlier this year, we updated to talk about Universal. Well, they've just signed a partnership with Sony Music. So that is a lot of musical content they're going to have access to. And what they're trying to do in their beta is just have a massive collection so that when they launch, they can launch on all major platforms for virtual reality and 360-degree media. Personally, I think that's an excellent decision, and I cannot wait until it launches. Okay, and then my final say coming up. And just my last 2 cents on this, guys. Another reason I get so excited about VR, maybe, just maybe, and we've seen holograms of people. We know we can do a pretty decent job of recreating dead people. We can. I think it's only going to get better. Imagine if I could instead see Led Zeppelin, Earl's Court, or Nebworth. That would be amazing. Or I just talked about Black Sabbath at 1970 in Paris. Imagine if they're able to recreate from that footage digitally recreated band members and venue that feels like the real thing. I think we're going to get there one day. So I'm not completely giving up on being able to see them as a second best option. Obviously not live. That would be freaking amazing. Let me know what your thoughts are on that, guys. That is it for the news on this Tuesday. Tomorrow, the last leg of the frickin' journey. And then I am back. So there will be a VR news show from home base tomorrow. Guys, as always, cheers.